The Pit Press Podcast.
Reynolds launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico with it.
Some big-time games and shots. How about this? Where have you been? MC knocking him down twice. Looking top and keeping it alive. House from knee. Got it. This kid is amazing. This is what got them in trouble. That ball screen giving up the mid-range. Look at this foul. House again. It's topping. Fifth assist.
And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air. But New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State. And the Lobos claim the Mountain West Conference's automatic bid into the NCAA tournament.
My name is Ryan Tamori. Welcome to another episode of the Pit Press Podcast. We are going to recap the Lobos loss Friday night in America's finest city, San Diego. I'll refrain from the Anchorman joke, Eric. As always, I'm joined by my business partner and co-founder in New Mexico Alumni Media, which is under the Pit Press is under that umbrella. Mr. Eric Moulton, how you doing, man?
Hey, Ryan, I'm good, man. Happy and excited to be on the podcast again with you guys. Let's talk some hoops.
And he is the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs and a Lobo fan since 1970. Mr. Ed Nunez, how you doing?
Good, Ryan. Not the result we wanted, but I thought it was a great game and a great college environment. I really enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, it definitely looked like an awesome environment. It did. And all the way from where in the world is Rick Thompson? Should have queued up the song. He's in Reno, Nevada, a two-time offensive state lineman for San Juan Mendoza, played for Damian Segura. And I don't know, I was trying to give you another accolade there. But anyway, Mr. Richard Thompson, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Just getting some weird looks around the Reno here with the Wolfpack fans, trying to decipher what wolf I have on my hat. So it's been fun and ready to talk about some Mountain West action with you guys.
What's Reno's nickname? The biggest city? Oh, man.
Biggest little town on earth, or biggest, smallest, biggest little something.
Biggest little city in the world. Boy, I butchered that. Now somebody in Reno is going to make fun of Albuquerque. But I live here, and Rick, you don't either, but there's plenty to make fun of. All right, and if you can follow him at NM Sports Capper on Twitter. And hopefully he's finally feeling better, Mr. Jacob Neff. How you doing, man?
I am, Ryan. Thanks for asking. But yeah, ready to preview recap the San Diego State game and talk some hoops.
Before we get on to the show, if you are looking for a place to watch the Lobos when they are on the road, and by the way, we were at Turquoise Desert Tap Room on Friday night, and it was awesome. Shout out to Armando, the owner. Really cool place. So if you make a bet and you don't want to stay and go to Quesada's Comedy Club after you make the bet, head on over to Turquoise Desert Tap Room. It's right by the San Andreas Star Casino. It's only a few minutes away. It's literally like a left turn. You probably make a right and a left onto, what's that road? I rarely go up there. You take off the main drag in Berlioz. Is it 528? Yeah. You think I would know that. Hey, when you're there, catch the Lobos right now, other college basketball, the NBA, the NHL is outdoors in New Jersey. There we go, Ed. One New Jersey reference. All that action, catch it there. Stop by for food, drinks, and football. Turquoise Desert Tap Room also serves local brews on tap. Find them on Facebook. Find them on Instagram at Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Abrazo Homes, it is Lobo-owned and Lobo-operated and a proud supporter of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department and student athletes. Join the movement and help Abrazo Homes build momentum by contributing to our friends Kurt Roth and Drew Herrig over at 505 Sports Venture Foundation or the UNM Lobo Club. When you buy an Abrazo home, you become a part of the Abrazo Familia. If you are looking to build the perfect home in New Mexico, find them at abrazohomes.com. I didn't have any sound bites queued up. The one that I was thinking about was, I think, was it the Saunders dunk at the end? If I can find it, I'll play it. Hey, the Lobos go on the road to what looked like a fantastic environment at Viejas Arena. And kind of before I get into the game, I thought that NASCAR truck series was tape recorded or recorded. It was not. It was live. It delayed the start of a college basketball game. I know a lot of people were upset about that on FS1. I'll tell you what I'm more upset about is Daytona 500 actually getting canceled today, because now I'm in a NASCAR fantasy league. So I'm amped about that. I'm in it with Jacob. But UNM, they had a 5-game road winning streak and it was snapped. 81-70 loss to San Diego State. I think that final score kind of looks like a little bit better than it was. I don't know. It was a really kind of weird game. UNM kind of hung around. Jalen House played. I'll compare him to the Rock now because I guess the Rock's the villain. He kind of thrived in the first 5-7 minutes. It looked like, man, UNM was going to punch them in the mouth. You know, it's one of those things. San Diego State is still defending champs, and they have solely pushed themselves into second place behind Utah State. Colorado State got Utah State on Saturday. Nevada came back and beat UNLV. Boise State thrumped Fresno State. So a lot of good Mountain West Conference action, and the league itself is topsy-turvy. But as far as the game, and I went off on a tangent there, it's kind of expected how at least I thought it was going to go. And if I were a betting man, which I am, I took San Diego State -6.5 because I didn't trust anything. Not UNM wise, I didn't trust anything I've seen in the league up to date. And you can ask UNLV as of Saturday night because it was pretty crazy. Rick, I'll start with you. And I think one of the things, I'm going to go to Ed. I'll tell you who, out of all the negativity that I just spewed out of my pie hole, is Mustafa Amzil. And we've said it since like the turning of the calendar year. Man, he is really good. He was 2 of 5, 1 for 3 from 3 at 11 rebounds, drew 8 fouls, had 10 points, and he battled with Jaedon LeDee, and it was kind of like man's game. And LeDee is probably looking at being the player of the year in the conference and an All-American. But man, I give credit where credit is due on this one. Mustafa Amzil played incredibly well. Just your thoughts on him.
Yeah, it was obviously incredibly physical game with Nelly getting in foul trouble early. And when Nelly was even on the court, he was kind of like a shadow of what he usually is. He wasn't very physical on defense. He missed a handful of what I would think shots he could normally make around the rim. And he just wasn't very assertive, it seemed like, once he got in foul trouble. So that means Amzil played, I think, maybe his season high 30 minutes. And probably the only contributor off the bench in my eyes. And San Diego State's bench was just a lot stronger overall. I think they scored 25 to our 15 off the bench. But when you're battling someone like LeDee, and I've never battled someone of that size, but I've battled men larger than me. And it's just, you have to find every amount of leverage you can. What I used to like to do is get my thumb and shove it in their back. That gets them to jump a little bit, but I'm just kidding. I would never do that. But Amzil was down there, man, and it looked like a real WWE match, right? They're tangling arms. You got LeDee throwing them in the air. You know, it was a little dramatic from Amzil, but when you're playing defense against a guy like that, you got to make it look worse than it is sometimes. And he got a few calls. I give him the credit, right? And I think he also had 10 points. So he battled the whole game. And I really think he was one of the guys that kept him in it. One thing about the Lobos is they kept fighting the whole game, man. And I really admired that. And Amzil, along with House and Toppin, were one of the few guys that I think were playing at full speed and were effective in the game. So like you said, Amzil's definitely the best bench player we have. And since conference play has started, he's probably been one of the more valuable pieces.
No, Rick, I liked your answer though. That was awesome. I'm going to go to Ed on that one. Your thoughts on Amzil, and did you ever shove a thumb in anybody's back when you played, Ed?
I laughed when Rick said that because, I officiated, and I never did that, no, but there was a player from Highland that did that and got kicked out. I remember that I was watching that game, and that did happen. So when you said that, Rick, I kind of had to laugh about that one. And, Rick, I guarded 6'8", 6'9" guys playing with the Lobos at Johnson, and I had to do my best, get the leverage, try to push them out, push them up the lane. But I thought Amzil, look, if you look at LeDee, they showed a picture of Julius Peppers next to him. God, that guy.
I'm glad you brought. I don't mean to interrupt you, Ed. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask Rick about that.
Oh, holy cow, that guy is huge. He's big. So the other unfortunate thing is Amzil did a great job. At one point, he's denying LeDee position, and somebody got their hands up on a post pass, which is you should do to deny it, and they stole it. But when you're battling like that, you're trying to battle, get him off the sweet spot, make the catch tough in the post. I thought he played his behind off. I really did. And somebody mentioned if they had officiated Amzil the way they do LeDee, it might have been a different game. They're not going to do that. That's not the way it goes, man. LeDee is a post player, strong as heck. That's the way that I thought Dutcher did a good job of going to him when Nelly and Joseph went to the bench. They ran some good stuff, and you would do that too if you're Dutcher. You're saying, who do they got on LeDee? Oh man, post time. Give it to him. That's what you do. So they knew they were coming at him. The doubles were a little bit late, but I thought, again, Amzil held his post position better than I've seen him do it all year against a beast. And not only did LeDee post up and, score and drew 10 fouls, he also set some bone-rattling picks. I saw one. I'm like, God, I don't know if it was on Hauser, but he set some really solid picks. He played big. It's tough to stop a guy like that. He's drawn a numerous fouls from other Mountain West Conference teams all season long. That's what he does. But going back to Amzil, the other thing is, now look, somebody mentioned Dwayne Rogers, who we had on the show, is a very good friend of mine, mentioned this. We'd like to play him more to 3. But unfortunately, Mushila, who's willing, is 6'4". Can't really play him too much. We saw what Forsling did. Look, if somebody had mentioned, let's bring you, not anybody here, we've all talked about Forsling. Let's bring him in. We saw what happened. He's too slow. Can't play him. Period. Can't play him. He went in there. LeDee went right at him. And you would do that if you're LeDee. You're saying, okay, this guy just came off the bench. Let's see what he can do. You can't play him. So I think if Amzil played a little bit more 3, Lobos would be in better position or better defensively. But, Nelly and Toppin got in some foul trouble. And Nelly, Toppin, man, some gorgeous up and unders. Even hit him with the right hand a couple of times. Caught it in the lane one time. They dug him out and just rose and fired with the left-hand hook. He made some amazing moves, got some offensive rebounds. Rick, you're always talking about the second jump. Oh, my God, he's impressive. He's only a freshman. Gosh, he's impressive. Too bad he wasn't on the floor more. I think New Mexico might have had a better chance. But, again, give LeDee credit. People are going to say the refs, this and that. He drew the fouls. That's what he does. And I thought Dutcher did a good job of exploiting that mismatch. But, again, your question was to Amzil. Give him credit. He played great off the bench. He really did.
Jaedon LeDee's not line. Let me get that right because all I've gotten is things wrong lately. Jaedon LeDee, 34 minutes, 7 of 10 from the field. He hit 1 3. He took 2. I'm not knocking him here. I have to preface this because that Julius Peppers comparison, I was looking at the muscles, man, and I was like, damn, like this guy's a tank. And Julius Peppers is a Pro Football Hall of Famer. But Jaedon LeDee, he had 8 of 11 free throws, 3 rebounds, drew 10 fouls, 23 total points, and he had 4 steals with 2 assists. Quite the stat line. I thought he played really well, and I definitely think that game probably propelled him to Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. I think Great Osabar is probably out of that running. But yeah, man, what an impressive game by him. Neff, I'll go to you. Toppin did it again. I thought he battled. It was kind of like a the 3-headed dog between Amzil, House, and Toppin the other night, and we will get into the negative. But 18 points, 10 rebounds. You can't say anything more than that.
Yeah, no, he was great. Whether it was a play that was given down to him where he had to make a move to score, or it was an offensive rebound put back. He just, we've talked about it before. he goes up and gets the rebounds. He doesn't let them come to him. He attacks everything. He has no fear. He's playing in a hostile environment against a really good team that has a lot of good defenders. He's taking it straight to them, straight to their chest. Really good moves in the paint, not scared to take it to the basket. Obviously has been playing great defense all year. He's a really big bright spot for us. And, I don't see how, how he doesn't continue to just improve. He's almost a consistent double every night now, and that's huge for this team. I think that the other night, if it wasn't for him on a couple of areas where they were on runs or they were really starting to extend their lead and he got the ball, or he was like I said, put one back in to stop runs, they could have been in trouble multiple times in that game. And also he was the one consistent player besides Amzil that stayed in the game and gave us minutes. So he's an intelligent player. He knows what he's doing. And it's crazy to say that because he's only a freshman, but you wouldn't believe that. You look at him and you think that he's a junior or a senior, just the way that he plays and how much composure he has. So really impressed with him, and continue to be impressed with him as the season's rolled on.
Eric, I will go to you and your thoughts. Sorry, go ahead. Your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I was going to add just to what Neff said, and I don't know, he may have said it and I might have missed it, but JT's 7 offensive rebounds. Like, I think we've seen him do that over and over again in a lot of games where he's just really effective on the offensive glass and gets a lot of his putbacks there. So he did have 20 some points, 22 points. 18 points. A lot of those were because of his own doing on the offensive glass. But yeah, he's definitely playing above his years. And with this game specifically and San Diego State's really effectiveness on the defensive side, they limited the Big's touches, right? Nelly had 2 points. Toppin didn't really get any offensive looks, and whenever he did get the ball in the post, they were doubling him. Where I thought the Lobos lost this game was definitely from their guards. Not a whole lot of effectiveness. We watched Donovan Dent miss 3 layups, which is totally uncharacteristic of him. He was getting to the rim, just not finishing. And there were a few other times where guys were missing some runners in the lane. Baker didn't really shoot the ball well. He was 0 for 6 from the field. And San Diego State took advantage of that. A lot of that was
he was 1 of 6, 1 from 5 from 3.
1 of
he
6.
hit 1.
And we were really high on him, right? And I felt like the Lobos just didn't shoot the ball well. I think they shot 35% from the field, which you're not going to win a lot of games like that. And especially when you're not getting the scoring from the guards, which the Lobos rely heavily on. And then Amzil, Ricky kind of hit it on the head with, he was kind of just a shadow out there. Only 2 offensive rebounds. He saw 18 minutes. Other than that, you couldn't even really tell that he was in the game. And this was a game in the first matchup at the Pit where they did a really good job on limiting LeDee. He had 15 points, but they made his night hell. They were challenging every shot. And in this game at Viejas, he kind of had his way. And it was no secret the whole offense was going to him. And the Lobos just didn't have an answer. So when you can't stop them on the defensive side and then you shoot 35% as a team on the other, you're just not going to win any games. And I give them credit for keeping it close and for battling it back. They had to scrap in the second half. I think they cut the lead to 3 with about 6 or 7 minutes left. And then San Diego State went on a 6-0 run or something like that. And the Lobos just never recovered from that. And a lot of different things to touch on. There wasn't one specific reason why they lost, but just the null production from the guards, Nelly's disappearance. The shooting was not very good. I don't think they did a really good job of valuing their possessions either. I think we had a lot of turnovers. And then you look at the comparison with San Diego State, they had 20 assists to UNM 6. To me, that just, if you only have 6 assists, it's not a whole lot of ball movement. And I even think one of the announcers made a comment about it, that a lot of UNM's offense was dribble, pull up, dribble, get to the bucket, but not a lot of ball movement from sideline to sideline. So we've seen what this team can do when they are moving the ball well, and they just didn't have it that night.
San Diego State had 20 assists. Rick, go ahead, because I was about to ask you about the turnovers, but sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think just continuing off what Eric was saying, I think the offense was just limited in the half court because of Dent's injury. We have to give him a lot of credit for even going out there and playing. If they're not playing in Southern California, I doubt he plays that game. He's missing that explosiveness, and that even, I think, limited the pick and roll game into why we couldn't get the big men involved, right? He wasn't able to really weave and have those dish off passes like he normally has. So I give him a lot of credit just for playing. I just wanted to throw that in since we're hitting on Donnie.
No, that's a valid point. I was going to ask about him later, but you had mentioned something the notes that you sent me before we we hit record, the turnovers. You had said that they were costly turnovers for UNM within where they were in the when they got within a few points, and I think with about 6-7 minutes left, they cut it to 3. Jalen House had 5 turnovers. San Diego State had 25 points off of turnovers, and they had 19 total, and San Diego State had 20. So kind of a sloppy game, right, Jacob? But let me ask Rick about the turnovers.
Yeah, obviously we know House is the most effective player we have offensively and defensively. If you look at the stats on Evan Mia and other places, he's our most valuable player overall. And when he came out of the game at about the 7-minute mark, I think it was 14-12, he sat out 4 minutes and 30 seconds. We were down 10 points by the time he got back in the game. And even though he played his butt off, it just seemed like the turnovers, 5 of them, could have been 6, where he slid on the ground in the first half and they didn't call it travel. Sometimes he's going too fast for his own good. One time he ran into Donovan Dent, and the killer for me was when they were down 3 points and he comes streaking down the right sideline, and I think he just went out of bounds or traveled or something. But there was multiple times where the Lobos were right there on the cusp of tying it or getting the lead, and those turnovers just led to timely points on the other side for San Diego State, and it just seemed like they had the answers when we were within reaching distance. So 19 turnovers, I don't know if that's the high, but it has to be our close for the high on the season.
Jacob, I'm going to go to you because you had mentioned on Twitter that this wasn't a sloppy game. There were 39 turnovers.
Oh no, I said it was a sloppy game.
Right. That was sarcasm. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, there was no flow to that game. Really, offensively, it was just for a while. It just seemed like it was get the ball, run down the court, and try and get somebody open and pass it to somebody, or make a layup or pull up. And it just seemed like we were a little ahead of ourselves. We couldn't settle down. And I think that's where Dent was missing, because he didn't have, his first step, his willingness to take the ball down the court. And there was a lot of chances, a lot of chances where we had the ball, the game down into a 3-5 point area, and we would run the ball up with House and, try and find somebody open. And then there would be a turnover or a quick shot or something to that effect. And then they would balloon it back up to 9 or 10. And it seemed like that was always the case. I mean, that game should have been sponsored by Pepto-Bismol, because the runs were just like, crazy in that game. It was 8-0 runs, and then New Mexico would respond with a 6-0 run. And then, they would go back on a 10-0 run, and then it would get to like an 8-2 run. It was just ridiculous. But then in the second half, there was no fluidity to that game, because it was like foul, and then turnover. And it just seemed like you couldn't get into a flow of a basketball game. So yeah, when you see 40 total fouls and 39 turnovers in a game, I wouldn't call that a crisply played basketball game. That to me just sounds like a roller coaster of events. So I thought that they were a little out of place all night. But like we said, we have to give them credit because they fought, and Donovan was he wasn't himself. You could tell his first step was lacking. When he got to the rim, his liftoff wasn't there, I think. And it was definitely definitely bothering him throughout the game. You could see that, but he still did find a way to get 11 points on the night. And I just think, that's what San Diego State does. When you go to San Diego State, they make it sloppy, and they're professionals at winning that type of game. They want you to struggle to not turn over the ball, stuff like that. So I really admired their fight, but yeah, sloppy game in my 2 cents.
You're on mute.
Killed my joke there. I was like, it sounded like the lunch lady from Billy Madison. I know how you boys like them extra sloppy. So pregame live at Turquoise Desert Tap Room, somebody, I think a listener had asked us, or we came up with who our X factors would be for San Diego State. I had said Miles Bird. He was 1 of 2 from the field. He hit 1 3. He had 2 rebounds and 6 assists. And kudos to Eric, because he said Elijah Saunders, 5 of 8 from the field, 50% from 3, 2 of 4, 3 rebounds, 12 points. He did have 3 turnovers, but I would say, and then he had that huge alley-oop towards the end. That was kind of the exclamation mark. Eric, you said that, so kudos where kudos are due.
Yeah, he was also plus 14 for San Diego State too, which is by far their biggest plus-minus contributor to that game. And he has played really well in a lot of those games, and he's also built like Jaedon LeDee is. I think he's only like a sophomore, maybe he is a junior, but he's got a little bit of an outside game to his repertoire. But he's just really physical and can get to the basket, finish around the rim. And I just had a hunch that the Lobos have struggled with some size lately, and in these type of games that San Diego State likes to play, they like to go at guys, and that's why the fouls are called the way that they are. I just felt like they were going to outmuscle the Lobos a little bit, and I think that's kind of what contributed to this game. And I don't know, it was kind of a shot in the dark with him kind of being the X factor. But if you kind of look at the stats, they got a healthy scoring balance from a lot of their guys. It wasn't just Eliza Shanders, but you go down. I think we had talked about Micah Parrish kind of being one of those guys that could potentially have a big game. He finished with 7. Jay Powell, who started in place of Reese Waters, finished with 8. Miles Bird with 3. And who else am I looking at? Lamont Butler with 13. It's just healthy balance. You compare that to the Lobos outside of JT Toppin and Jalen House. I think in that text thread that Nick had mentioned, Ed, I forgot what he said. Outside of those 2 players, the Lobos, I think they contributed to like 60% of their scoring. And you guys, any of you guys have that text pulled up? That text thread?
I do. I didn't read it. I apologize to Nick and Ed. What were you looking for there, Eric?
It was outside of House and Toppin.
Yeah,
the team shot 23%.
23%. Cramper, that was from Jeff Grammer's Empty in the Notebook. Didn't miss shots. Yeah. So outside of House and Toppin, the team only shot 23%. They shot 35% total with those 2 guys.
The scoring was very top heavy for UNM. And if you compare that to San Diego State, they got it from all different angles. And you're going to get some of that, especially playing in a home game, riled up crowd. They're kind of feeling themselves a little bit. It's tough to win the Mountain West. You look at any of these other games, Utah State got throttled by Colorado State by 20 in Saturday's game. So it happens. I think they just caught the Lobos on an off night.
Eric, it reminded me to David Fresquez. I don't have to eat horse poop, so I don't have to pull a Philadelphia
What a jokester!
Fan. My kind of guy. I love it. There was a brief thought where I was like, man, I hope I don't have to eat horse shit. And if you don't know the story behind that for our listeners, after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, a fan on Broad Street picked up horse poop and ate it, drunk off his ass. So just because I got a reference from Anchorman, so I'm just explaining the context of my terrible, terrible sense of humor. Ed, I'm going to go to you in this one, and it might be a Rick question. Neff did bring it up. The Lobos won the rebounding battle 33-32. If you would have told me that, I thought, well, there's probably like a 90% chance they would have won the game.
They did. I saw that they won the rebound battle by 1, but the points in the paint were pretty even too. But I think as we mentioned, that San Diego State with LeDee dominated as far as scoring in the paint. Now Toppin, he in foul trouble, but he was magnificent. I thought the post touches he was able to get. I saw some great footwork, some explosiveness, the up and under with the right. We hadn't seen that one. I had to go back and I think I rewound that a couple of times. Like, wow, what a gorgeous move that was. And he's been very impressive. So, but I think the other thing I wanted to mention, when LeDee, he started passing out of that double team and the floor spacing at the end, the color commentator said this. San Diego State was making easy reads. They made some nice passes. I thought Trammell and Butler hurt us when they needed to. Trammell was the Western Regional Player of the Year last year, the tournament. We need to remember that. I think, Eric, you mentioned that they're the Mountain West tournament champions, and they're the runner-up in the NCAAs last year for a reason. And they played well at their home court. They played well. The crowd was great. I love to see it. They're on House. House is on them. House goes and grabs Patino from getting another tee, and it made me laugh because I'm like, wow, look at that. That's funny. He's grabbing him, but he's the one, jibber jabbering. But it's funny to me. It was kind of funny that, House, sometimes it's a little too much, but to me, it was entertaining. I thought it was entertaining. But back to the rebound thing, they did hold their own as far as rebounds, and the points in the paint were closer than people might think. But LeDee, again, I thought when they started doubling him, and then Nelly got caught paint watching. He's so the relationship between your man and the ball, shoot your guns. Nelly got caught a little bit. His Saunders, the 5-point run, Eric, you mentioned what a good player he is. He hit a 3 and then the tomahawk slam. That run, I thought, put it away. I thought after that, New Mexico, they still could have had a chance, but I thought that run put it away. So all things said, Ryan, I mean, you would have thought, like you said, with the Lobos winning this rebound battle, that you wouldn't have thought that with the way LeDee played, but LeDee dominated inside, and then when he's doubled or even they shaded him, he passed it back out. The floor spacing was good. They moved the ball side to side and made New Mexico come a long way to rotate. And I thought they did a good job of running their half-court offense when they needed some points.
To Jamal Mashburn Jr. And the one shot does not count in my book. He was 0 for 9. He hit a late layup. He was 0 for 6 from 3. He had basically 0 points. It got him to 70 with I don't know how much time left on the clock. He had 1 assist and 2 turnovers and no steals. You want to talk about a roller coaster, much like the league. I mean, he's had one good game, and it's he played 23 minutes. That was about as bad as performance as you could have possibly had. And if you think about it, he hits 1 or 2 of those shots, it's probably a different game. The floor is open to whoever wants to start with Jamal Mashburn, because I'm sure all 4 of you have thoughts. Jacob, I can start with you if you want.
Sure. I mean, yeah, it's been it's kind of been the story of Jamal Mashburn this year. It's a mixed bag of inconsistency, to say the least. It was a great game against Nevada, and then I think we regressed right back to where we were before this, is not understanding how the game was being called, not taking smart shots, not recognizing that you can't hit the broadside of a barn, you can't throw the ball into the ocean that night. And then he finally drove it to the basket with about 4 or 5 minutes to go in the game, avoided all contact when everything was being blown a foul at the rim in the second half, and just threw up a circus layup, barely drew anything, started an offensive break for San Diego State the other way. And I mean, you kind of mentioned it with the stat line, 2 points, which you said don't count. I mean, technically,
doesn't count. I mean, technically,
yeah,
technically it does count. Yeah, but
so 2 points, a rebound, 2 turnovers, no steals. I mean, ineffective. So that's what I'll say about that.
Who's
Yeah,
up next on that one?
Yeah, to be fair, everyone shot the ball really, really bad this game, right? But what I noticed most about Mashburn, right, he was 0 for 6 from 3. A lot of his attempts, and I would say 90 to 95% of his shot attempts are coming off of a dribble bounce. They're dribble pull up. When we saw him hit those 2 threes against Nevada to pull ahead in that game, both of them were catch and shoot. His feet were set, coming off of an assist, coming off of some type of offensive flow where he's not having to create on his own. And this last game, all of his shots were off the dribble, and they're coming off a screen. He's having to create his own shot. And if Mash isn't hitting the first 2 or 3 attempts early in the game when he comes off like the elbow, it's just not going to be his night, and he just can't find a rhythm. It just kind of goes to what the biggest disadvantage on the stat sheet was, the 20 assists to San Diego State, the 6 to UNM. There just wasn't a lot of ball movement. There was not a lot of movement off of some back screens, coming off some curls, looking to move the ball inside, looking to kick back out. There was just way too much dribbling going on, and everyone was guilty of it. And it just
Wouldn't
they never moved away from that. They never adjusted.
wouldn't you think a team that has lost games like this stat sheet right here would know, like, have learned their lesson? I don't like, especially as we sit here and talk on February 18th with like 2 to 3 weeks left of the season before the conference tournament. You just, I don't. I think one of the things I definitely want to ask, and I'll go to Rick. It felt like Patino, because they played well in the second half and they scored the total points. It was 42 to 42 in the second half. It felt like Patino did make adjustments. And I'll throw that to you, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to touch on the terrible shooting. It's not all on the Lobos. You have to credit San Diego State.
right ahead.
They made everything difficult. And they were up in Mashburn's face. He's 6'2", and the defenders are all over. He couldn't see the rim half the time when he was shooting. So I think we know that what Mash brings, right? He can provide something, but on these games where he's not shooting, he has to get to the free throw line. He has to find other ways to affect the game, right? Everyone's going to have an off night. Baker was no better this game, right? So I think we just have to realize, and like you're saying, Ryan, wouldn't they have learned by now? I think the Lobos are what they are. There's going to be games like this where the offense is just flat. And we've seen it multiple times against UNLV 2 times, and again against San Diego State. So for Patino, I mean, you guys can call out what adjustments you saw. Nothing is really coming to my mind, besides they had to go small on defense, and that became a cluster when Mushila was in there with Amzil. But I didn't really see any adjustments myself.
Again, that's me not being the X's and O's guy. I might be wrong.
You guys
Ed,
tell me if I'm wrong.
Ed, I'll go to you on that one.
But I think, Rick, you make a good point. My son made that point about San Diego State's athleticism and length made it hard in the half court for New Mexico to execute. So I think that's a good point. Now, coming from a shooting standpoint, we talked about it with Amzil earlier in the season. His shots were way the heck off. Then he started was on the rim. As a shooter, believe me, I used to shoot from long distance. And I didn't make them all, but I always knew when the shot was good or felt good. Some of Mash's, and I didn't see the first 10 minutes. I don't know what shots he took in the first 10 minutes since the game was delayed, but the shots that I saw were on the rim. I mean, they're not shots against Boise State. He's way off. Balance-wise, he's drifting left or right. This one here, and I think you made a good point, Eric, he's always been mid-range Mash, though, right? Pound, shoot. But if you're Coach Dutcher, you got dudes up on that second dribble, right up on you. And I think they did get a hand up, but I still saw the shots that were close. In other words, if I'm the shooting coach, I'm going to say, hey, man, keep shooting those. Those aren't way off. The other ones against Boise State, we have to do some adjusting. We got to get shots up and get your balance and your mechanics right. I didn't think the mechanics were that bad. I thought the shots were on the rim. I thought, hey, those have a chance. They didn't go in. And Rick, you made a point. Those nights happen, man. They happen. And San Diego State, let's remember, is a hell of a good team. They're good, and the New Mexico got their best effort. But with all that said, 58-55 game, still there, right? And I think who said it? I don't know. House goes down and unforced turnover, and we got the good house and we got the bad house. We got the good and the bad, But I thought he's trying to come off curls and make plays because he saw that between Dent and Mash, they're 4 of 20 from the field, and we mentioned Dent even being out there. Rick, you've had an ankle. Eric, you've had an ankle. Jacob in football, you've had more than ankles, man, and you went out there and played, and it's not easy. Ryan, I'm sure you've sprained ankles. Those aren't easy to play with, man. They're not easy. So give him credit for even being out there. And with all that said, New Mexico still was within striking distance and just didn't get it done. And give San Diego State credit at the end. I thought the last 3 minutes, they made the plays they had to make to win. But New Mexico battled. I didn't see them quit at all, and I'm encouraged by that. But, hey, give the Aztecs credit, man. They're the Mountain West Conference champions, defended champions for a reason.
Yeah, I didn't roll an ankle, but I took a ground ball to my manhood. So there you go.
Yeah.
And it hurt, and it felt like your heart and my lungs just shot out of my brain. It was the worst feeling ever. Got me real good. I think, we've kind of had this discussion the last few episodes, is whether this team has put itself on the bubble. I think Lenardi had him in as an 8-9 again. I didn't look if they updated it. You know what, Jacob, I'll go to you though, because San Diego State is now a 4 seed, and I'm just going to put you on the spot. You're pretty convinced that they are not a 4 seed.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've played inconsistent basketball across all year, really. I mean, the Lobos are now 3-3 in quad 1 wins. They're 5-6, so they're not even 500 against quad 1 teams. They sent out that bracket yesterday, and they give them a 4 seed. They're not even in first place in the conference. Yes, they played a better out of conference schedule than Utah State, but it's just been up and down for them as well. I don't think that they dominated us in any way, shape, or form. You could see the tale of two halves against Colorado State. You're getting blown out by 14 on your home court, and then you have to make it one of the biggest, lopsided halves in what I've seen in college basketball in a long time at 40-11 to come back and win that game. I don't think they're a 4 seed. I don't think anybody in the Mountain West deserves more than a 5, maybe. But that's just my opinion. I think this conference is tough and they're beating up on each other. And I don't know. I mean, when you essentially put San Diego State on the 4 line in the tournament, you're saying they're a top 16 team, but then yet they're not in the top 25. So it's really weird this year. There's so many different, outlooks on teams and what's going on. And it's hard to get a grip of where everybody really is because, you've got teams like San Diego State on the 4 line, but they haven't been in the top 25 for what now? 4 weeks in the top 25 pool. It's really weird. So hard to see where everybody's valuing certain people. But to me, I think 4 is overseeding them, in my opinion.
I think sorry, Ryan, I'm going to just mention this real quick. I think the committee putting San Diego State at the 4 spot or at a 4 seed, it's kind of a reflection of what their impression is of the Mountain West, like what the respect level. So I think it's a good thing for the Mountain West. I think it's a good thing for the Lobos and the type of respect that they might see if their names to be called if they don't receive that automatic bid. Right? Like if they're willing to seat them that high and they're not even in first place in their own conference, like where else does everyone else sit? The teams that are in front of them. So I just think the level of respect with the Mountain West is starting to get some of that national recognition that has been deserved and hasn't been really well received for the last couple of years. So that's my 2 cents on it.
I think that's the presumption that they're going to win the Mountain West tournament and might steal it from, Utah State. I mean, you still got 3 weeks. Lenardi has, as of Friday, I didn't see this. Lenardi has UNM as a 10 seed in the South. They would play Oklahoma, which you could argue the Big 12 is the best conference. And if they were to win that, they'd probably get 99.9%. They'd get Marquette, who is also a team I think better than UNM. Mike DeCourcy has that matchup that Jacob and I love. He didn't update it against Indiana State. And our boy, the Goggles, they do nothing. And Cherry Palm, as of yesterday morning, has them as an 8-9 seed in the West against TCU. And if by all means they win, hypothetically, they would get the University of Arizona, who also I don't think they are better than. That was one of the comments that was brought up to us. Not trying to call out our listeners, that UNM was like the third best team in the country. This is Friday when UNM lost by 11. UConn dominated Marquette, a game I watched, 81-53, and Marquette was probably deemed the regular season game of the year. Marquette is very good. Tyler Kolek. And then Houston, with their stifling defense, was up like 30, was up at one point, I think, by like 25 or 30 on Texas. They won 82-61 and swept that season series. Kansas rallied. Iowa State may or may not, what TJ Holzenberger's done there, might be the best team pound for pound in the Big 12, offensively and defensively. But to say that UNM is like the best team one of the best teams in the country, and they proceed to lose, and then top two or three teams do that and wipe the floor with probably better competition. I'm not taking away from what UNM has accomplished. I'm not taking away from what the Mountain West has done. San Diego State has pivoted themselves very well, and they did last year. I don't care who they played. Play the hand you're dealt. They got a very good Creighton team. They beat the number 1 seed. They overall seed last year. They beat Alabama. But Ed, you can plead the fifth on this. I throw it to you if you'd like to say anything, but UNM is not like the third or fourth best team in the country. I'm sorry.
Look, we all want to be, you mentioned possible matchups, and every time you mention it, I'm like, well, okay, they've got a tough road to still, they've got Boise State and Utah State, Colorado State, and Fresno State left. This Mountain West Conference, we've all said, is very tough. You mentioned some scores last night. It's, UNM's right now tied for 5th, I believe, so they could still get there for sure. We want them to get there. As a Lobo fan, of course, I'm rooting for them. But I go back over the history, and what kind of seed might they get? You mentioned, Jacob, you thought San Diego State's not a number 4 seed. Maybe they're not. But based on their past reputation, do they get a 4 seed? We'll see. But a number 3 or 4 best team in the country, we've got to be honest. As much of a Lobo fan as I am, I'm gonna be objective. I think we're all objective. Every single one of you guys is objective. I respect every single one of your opinions because we are objective. I may be a fan, but I'm just not going to sit here and hey, man, and tell you that New Mexico is the 3rd or 4th best team when you mentioned Marquette, UConn, Houston. We have to be, let's take care of the Mountain West Conference, see what they do first, and then see what happens if they get to the tournament. Of course, we want to see them get to a Sweet 16. You imagine what the celebration would be here in this town if that happened?
Burn it to the ground.
I think Rick, this, Jacob, Eric, man, your championship run, it was one game at a time, man. You were part of the state championship team. Every game was a grind, man. So about that. You were there on the court hoisting up a blue trophy, man. So much respect to you and your team. Rick, you know about that too. So do you, Jacob. It's a grind to get there, even get to the tournament. So of course I'm hoping to get there. Of course, I love the Lobos, man. But 3rd or 4th best team in the nation, better pump the brakes on that one, man, for sure.
It's Jim Valvano. It's called Survive and Advance. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, looking at the standings, UNM has now played themselves not even to a bye. They would have to play Wednesday night in Vegas, or Wednesday. They've fallen to 5th and 8-5 overall. Utah State and San Diego State are now tied at 1st, and I think San Diego State's got the advantage over that because they beat them once. Boise's there at a half game back at 8-4. Colorado State is now 8-5, and they come into the pit. It's not going to be easy. I would say that I would say UNM has the advantage Wednesday night, but I am from Missouri. You have to show me. And I'm trying not to flip flop like I have here all year, because after that dominating run early in the year where they savagely beat San Diego State and Utah State, and went on that 4-game winning streak, they looked like world beaters. They looked like the 97, 98, or excuse me, 90, 95, 96 Chicago Bulls at home. Like it was impressive. And there's just been no consistency, but it's not to their fault with how good the conference is and who they have to play. I will say this, though, their schedule did them no favors. The fact that they got those guys early, I think it would have maybe, in hindsight's 2020, maybe it would have benefited them to not get San Diego State and Utah State back to back at home early in conference. Maybe it would have benefited them to get Utah State or San Diego State on the road early, and that you have one of these games. Not to mention that they still have to go to Boise in 2 weeks, who already beat them at the Pit. I just don't think they've done themselves any favors when you have placed yourself on the bubble. That's just my opinion. Eric, do you have anything? Jacob, do you have anything?
I think Rick had something to say.
Oh, Rick, go ahead.
And I just related to releasing the top 16 seeds weeks before Selection Sunday. I hate it. I do not want this to turn into a BCS show every week. I love Selection Sunday, and the teams have to wait to know what seeds they are, and us as fans, the anticipation of that. I don't like what they're doing, saying that this team is already this seed. And I mean, there's too much basketball left to be played. I kind of understand they're probably doing it for marketing and attention, but I myself don't like it. And that's my Chris Mad Dog Russo old man rant.
Jacob.
I agree. Didn't I say that to you yesterday, Ryan?
Yeah, you did. You texted to me, or you called me. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, why do we have to turn this into a college football thing? I mean, the suspense of Selection Sunday has always been one of the best things that you could potentially go through. You know what I mean? You have gatherings at these arenas, and you bring all these people in, and you watch the bracket be unveiled, and you wait for your name to be called. Screw the college football, how they have to do that and justify who's and where and all that kind of stuff. I think it makes for better basketball and better football if nobody knows where they're at, because then you have to play hard every game. You know what I mean? And I think it takes away from it. And I hope that they don't continue to do that, because that will definitely take away from some of the suspense. We'll already know who the top 4 seeds are in every bracket come Selection Sunday, and then we'll just know who made it from who was on the bubble, and then where the automatic qualifiers slotted into what seed. So I don't really like it. I think they should go away from it.
I have said that. I used to treat Super Bowl Sunday like it was the holiest day of the year. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, man, this, like, it doesn't suck. That's a terrible thing to say. It's just like, all right. And then we get to the game, and then sometimes it can suck, and then it can be a bad game. And then, I like defensive football. So everybody was like, oh, the first half was boring the other night. I didn't think so. I enjoyed seeing the two teams punch each other in the mouth. I mean, I thought that's why we liked football, because we're violent Americans, not finesse and what's another word I'm looking for? Style points. I thought we liked football because you got punched in the mouth. And now I'm going on a rant on a basketball show. But I have turned to Selection Sunday, and not just the first 2 days of the tournament, the first 4 days, I think are the coolest thing. It truly, I don't think anything's like it. And as much as I love college football, I love the regular season, and the bowl games and the system have its flaws. I don't know. We'll find out this year, but that's just my opinion on that. Does anybody have anything else to say before we go into Snake of the Game or Snake of the Week?
I'll say just one last thing that Rick touched on, with a lot of Mountain West basketball still left to play. San Diego State's at Utah State on Tuesday. There's still kind of a mixture of Colorado State's got to come to UNM on Wednesday. And those are, I mean, just between the teams in the top 6 kind of vying for those bye games in the Mountain West tournament. there's still a lot to be determined. So maybe it might be worth a dedicated podcast here in the next week or so, just kind of covering the breakdown, playing the different scenarios, who's going to finish in what seed, because there's just so much basketball left to be played, and everyone, from what I can tell, is winning at home, right, and struggling on the road outside of the UNLV Nevada game on Saturday. But there's just so much left to be determined that it's really hard to say where this conference is going to match up. But really exciting. I'm actually looking forward to it. I like watching Mountain West basketball and some of these other schools compete. And man, UNLV they lost against Nevada, but they kind of have a pretty favorable schedule coming up. So they actually might finish a lot higher towards the end of the year than a lot of people anticipated kind of midseason.
I think they're one of the most exciting teams to watch play in the league. They should not have lost that game yesterday. That's going to be a detriment to Kevin Kruger. But I think they're one of the funner teams to watch between Dean Thomas Jr., the Boone brothers, Rick, your guy, Rob Willie Jr. He started the game like 5 for 5, and he had a monster dunk. And I mean, he's screaming. I mean, he's like a round mound of a rebound. Like he's awesome. He kind of reminds me of old highlights of Charles Barkley. But yeah, I don't know. They're one of my favorite teams to watch play, and I like Utah State. And for as slow as Boise is, and I'll probably get flack for that, I still like watching them play because of Omar Stanley. I like Tyson Dagenhart. They've got a couple other players that I like there, Jacob. But anyway, yeah, it's a fun league to watch. I'm going to give you guys a moment to think of Snake of the Week, and as I bring it up here, mine would be. Wonder how Snake's doing right now. Wonder what he's doing right now at this moment. I give it up to Viejas Arena, man. I've always wanted to go there. It's one of those like 5 or 6 places that I've wanted to see a college basketball game. I've had the privilege of growing up here in Albuquerque and going to the Pit. I've been to Extra Mile in Boise. It feels like an 80s arena. When you get in there, it feels like a miniature NBA arena, which was pretty cool. I like the setup, but the walls were painted. Like they need to repaint that place for as much money as the football team has brought in. I think they need to fix up the paint there because it looks like something straight out of the 80s, which I'm sure that's when it was built. I think I looked it up. It was still cool. I'm not totally like knocking it. Viejas is it looks good, and it looked like it was wild, and they wanted their revenge. Because UNM had won 2 out of the last 3, and it probably should have been 3 out of 3, 3 straight. But I think they wanted to make a statement, and I think that's the rivalry in the Mountain West Conference as far as basketball goes. The last decade, you can throw BYU out there, but and that's just not New Mexico and BYU and Utah and BYU and San Diego State. I think UNM and San Diego State have had quite the rivalry, and I think it is the rivalry, the premier rivalry in the league. And if you want to tell me otherwise, I will listen to that. But it looked pretty cool on TV. So it's kind of a shame that they didn't get the treatment maybe that like UNM did, where it was on CBS on a Saturday. Jacob, I will go to you with your Snake of the Week.
Yeah, so for me, it's Amzil. I think he stepped up in a big way. We finally saw depth from the post get really tested, where we had to even bring Mushila in to play some post. And, he held his own all game. He drew some fouls from LeDee like we talked about. He made some shots. He grinded it out down there, gave us 30 solid minutes. I'm starting to get more excited about, the potential of him starting next year, right? When we lose some of these guys, he'll finally be able to step into a starting role again. And hopefully he could play the 3 and he doesn't have to play the 4 next year. Because, and I think he will, because obviously we have the potential to return Nelly and JT. So, but just a solid game from him. When you go into that type of environment, you need somebody willing to step up and play, that grindy type of game. And I think he did it for us. And I think that he's platformed himself into by far our best and most consistent bench player. So props to Amzil, and he's my snake of the game.
Ed, I'll go to you.
Got to say the same thing. I hate to, I try to do, be different, but there's no doubt he's the snake of the game. 10 points, 11 rebounds, battle LeDee in a respectable way. I mean, he held his position. That guy's hard to battle. Man, that guy's strong. So I got to give it to him, and I agree with Jacob, our best bench player, right now. And again, maybe down the way, if those guys don't get in such foul trouble, we'll see him be more effective in the position he plays best, which is the 3. But that's my snake of the week.
Eric.
I'm have to go with Donnie coming off that ankle injury. I think it was left more people in doubt that he was going to get into the game. And I think just simply having him in the game kind of brings a level of confidence with the rest of the team. And I know, especially as fans, it's like once you hear that Donovan Dent's playing, you kind of sigh a little bit of relief. But not a ton of production from him, but he did finish with 11 points. He had 2 blocks, which was 2 more than pretty much anyone else on the roster. Just him gutting it out. You could definitely tell that he was a step slow. Man, playing through ankle injuries is not easy nor fun, but he toughed it out, played a lot of minutes. They needed him, and I agree with what Rick said earlier. I don't think he would have played if it wasn't in San Diego, but he stepped up and saw some significant minutes and played through it. So that's my snake of the game.
Rick.
To go with JT, the last few games he's just continued to show me that he's not going to back down from any challenge, and he's just been super consistent. So keep doing it, Mr. Toppin. You're my snake of the week.
I'm going to throw it over to Eric one last time in regards to Affordable Solar and then Turquoise Desert Tap Room, our sponsors.
Yep. Affordable Solar still running their promotion with us. Time is running out, though, for 2 tickets to the Colorado State game that they're giving away for free. You got to go to their website. I'll provide the link below, but go ahead and fill out one of their forms to sign up for a free consultation to look at transitioning to solar, see how much money you can save, comparing that to your P&M bill. Go ahead and do that. Include the Pit Press hashtag in the comment section to go ahead and enter that contest, and they'll reach out to you to go ahead and arrange that. So I think you might have the option to do an in-home consultation and as well as like a remote virtual consultation too. So I know some people would prefer to do it that way, but hit up their website, fill out their form, and attach our link. And then lastly, with Turquoise Desert Tap Room, want to say a special thank you to Armando for letting us come by and host the pregame show, the live. I thought there were a lot of people there. I mean, both times that we've been there, it's been packed. People have been waiting for tables, and he's got a really nice setup, atmosphere, TVs to kind of go ahead and watch Lobos while they're on the road. So a few minutes away from Santa Ana Star Casino. Stop by, grab a drink, support local.
What else was I going to say? I said this on my radio show the time I was at KNML. This is a show for the Albuquerque community and the college basketball community. So I appreciate every comments and that we receive, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, don't care. I appreciate it. I don't want anybody to think we're stubborn. We kind of started this because we thought that UNM coverage, other than maybe Jeff Grammer and Sean Ryder, which again, sometimes they might be limited. That's why we started this thing. Visit us on X, or the artist formerly known as Twitter, at the Pit Press NM. Follow us on Instagram at the Pit Press NM, and then visit our website, which is the pitpressnm.com. We're also on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube and you happen to run into us nationally, hey, hit like and subscribe. I can't believe I'm saying that in the and then comment. Leave a comment below. We will probably preview Colorado State because we got an extra day or two here. But if not, enjoy the game, and we will definitely speak to you post Colorado State. Everybody have a good week.